What happened in this exchange goes far beyond one heated accusation. It's about the boundaries of federal power, the meaning of domestic terrorism, the role of training and accountability in law enforcement, and the fragile trust between communities and the officers sworn to protect them. Representative Val Hoyle wasn't just criticizing rhetoric, she was building a layered argument about escalation.
Now I'd like to go to Representative Val Hoyle from the state of Oregon.
I've spoken to many members and leaders in municipal law enforcement. I've spoken to many members and leaders in municipal law enforcement, and they're watching what's happening in Minnesota, and they're extremely concerned about what's going to happen in their communities. Now, I don't represent Portland, Oregon, but it's clearly high on the list of targets of for the Trump administration. And we have 9 federally recognized tribes that are watching what is happening with the Oglala Sioux and are wondering if they're next. In my district, DHS is trying to take over our Coast Guard facility that's critical for ocean rescues to build an ICE facility in a community where immigrants are working the most difficult jobs in commercial fishing, fish processing, agriculture, and protecting us from wildfire. Now, Chief McCarthy, we know that law enforcement has done the extremely hard work of building trust with the civilian population. And for any community to respect the authority of law enforcement, they have to believe that officers are operating in their best interest and respecting the rule of law. Stephen Miller has said ICE agents have absolute immunity with no qualifications, that habeas corpus can be suspended at the time of an invasion, and they're looking at that. The president has brought up invoking the Insurrection Act in cities that didn't vote for him and against communities that stand up against unconstitutional and illegal actions of ICE. Kristi Noem accused Renee Good of being a domestic terrorist before even looking at the facts. We have ICE agents that have between 4 weeks of online training and maximum 8 weeks of in-person training with limited background checks being thrown into highly charged situations with the administration egging on aggressive actions and spreading disinformation instead of working to de-escalate what is clearly putting our communities and our local law enforcement in danger. So, Chief McCarthy, could you briefly tell us what kind of training and experience do your local law enforcement officers have, and what does an investigation look like after an officer-involved shooting? Because I do not think there's any comparison to what has happened with the Renee Good shooting.
Thank you, ma'am, for that question. So in Minnesota, the minimum to be a police officer is you have to have a 2-year degree in law enforcement and criminal justice or a 4-year degree in anything. Once you've obtained that degree, we go through a skills-based program that is supervised by the state, and that's anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Then you are eligible to be licensed. Once you are eligible to be licensed, you can then apply at police departments who do a rigorous psychological and background check. Once that is done and you are hired, you then go through a training period, which again is another anywhere from 3 to 6 months with a minimum of 1 year probationary period. As far as after a use of force, an officer-involved shooting, it is very, very important that we do not comment, we do not guess as far as a justification or not a justification. You never want to color an investigation, as difficult as it is to not react to what you see. Professionally, it is very, very important that you don't give an indication if something is justified or not justified until all of the facts are brought in. It's very thorough, and only then does that legal determination get made at the end of a thorough investigation.
All right, thank you very much. Know that we're standing with you, and the Trump administration's use of force was meant to get people to back down, and the longer that you can stand up with our support, the better chance we have of making sure that this stops. We stop this in its tracks. Thank you all for your words.
Thank you, Representative Hoyle. I'd now like to recognize